Carlos Nelson with What's Up Kansas City and Cascade Media Group. And tonight we're here to talk some politics. And there was a video that went viral with a young lady that's here in Kansas City, Miss Keiajah Brooks, and she was speaking truth to power at the Kansas City Board of Police Commissioners. And we have some guests on tonight to talk about that video. I'd like to start off with Michael Long and get his opinion of what took place in that 3 or 4 minute video.
Peace and power, peace and blessings. Thanks for having me on tonight, Brother Nelson. Did see the video. The sister was a refreshing voice, a new face, you know, and like you were saying, spoke truth to power in a very necessary way, very eloquent too. You know, was graceful, but just poignant and concise in what she needed to say. It was prophetic, man. I have to say, it was prophetic. You know, she used scripture. She just really rebuked the system for their injustice and their corruption. And I commend her and support her 100% in her polemic that she presented, you know, in that particular setting. And I she's courageous. She's a warrior, you know, and that's something that is very needed in our day and time. And, you know, just really, hopefully we can find some momentum to garner to start moving more in a direction of liberation, because she talked about, you can't be my savior and my oppressor. That doesn't work. And that's something that we have to recognize for ourselves and understand what power and what authority that we truly do have as a people, especially with some things that are developing that we may get into a little bit later with the African Union and what they've extended to us. So it's a powerful presentation that she brought. So I'll just leave that there.
Tell me this, do you think that some people might look at that as personal attacks on those individuals, or do
they put themselves in that spotlight though? They're public officials and they're public personas, and so as such, we have to hold them accountable to the people. So yeah, we can hold them accountable like that because they voluntarily assume that position, so they have more scrutiny to receive. And they need to be scrutinized, and we need to hold the quote unquote leadership accountable to the people. So she's not wrong for what she's done at all.
Cobbs, why don't you chime in and talk about what you saw in those 3 minutes?
Well, I thought it was profound getting up there and being a voice to articulate the white supremacy and hypocrisy. It just goes to show that people are fed up with oppression, being exploited, you know, and not being taken seriously. What stood out to me the most was when the sister said that she was not interested in reform, but tearing down. You know, it highlights the fact that this system has never worked for people of African descent and was never created with African people in mind. So this sentiment of tearing the system down, I think it also points to other possibilities outside of electoral politics to achieve liberation and political power. So where we learn political science, critical thinking, and begin to acquire a political consciousness, then we can be more, what word am I looking for? We can be more in a position, you know, to achieve our own political interests.
Self-determined. That's what you're looking for.
Self-determination. That was the word I was searching for.
Hey, Mustafa, what did you...
This is brought to you by Africana Art.
Well, to be honest, I only saw a few seconds of it. I got most of my feedback from community folks that saw it. My sister called me and told me about the sister down there making her demands and making her position clear. I agree with what's been said already as far as tearing down. There's no reform in this. We've done all that before. It's been 100 years of this 150 years of what we call the police, quote unquote, slave catcher, whatever term that we're going to use now, oppressor, enforcer, law enforcement, their law enforcement. So I think it's very important for us, if we're going to talk about tearing something down, who's sitting in the room with us as a people with that plan on what's going to replace that? Because once we tear it down, there's going to be a vacuum. We don't need any more gangsters. We don't need any more thugs. We don't need any more political thugs or whatever. Whatever we're going to replace it with, I think we should be talking about that now. I think that's
right.
what we are now.
Well, I want to stay on Miss Brooks for a minute because that's what the whole hoopla is about. And I had called Mike earlier in the day, and he said something that was profound that I passed on to quite a few people in our community, that this young lady was going to need a lot of protection and a lot of support. And as I said, that was the impetus of us having this show tonight. And I said that I was committed, and if I'm committed, my network is committed to supporting her, having a voice, to be able to speak in her own words or our own words without being edited. And Chaz Boswick, when he was delivering his message at one of those awards ceremony, they start playing the music. It's time to get off. You're talking too much. They start doing that to her. Your time is up. But she kept going right at him. And that's the importance, I feel, of us being able to own our own networks and be able to talk in our own voice without any edits. So, with that being said, another video that, two videos that have caused a whole lot of hoopla, and that is Ice Cube and his position. And there was a video of Puffy and Charlamagne the God. And I watched both of them. I don't know, have my guests, have any of y'all seen any of the videos, interviews with Puffy or Ice Cube?
I haven't watched.
I've seen the Ice Cube.
How about
I'm familiar with what he's talking about, though. I haven't seen
how
the
about
video.
you, Cobbs?
I'm familiar. I haven't seen an interview with Puff Daddy yet, but I have seen
All
one
right.
in particular.
These are interviews that I think, and that's why having a network like What's Up Kansas City is important for you to go to our actual network, not just the Facebook page. So both of them say, yeah, they're doing some things with Trump, but they're not with Trump. They have programs for Black America, and the Democrats didn't reach out to them. The Republicans did. And at the end of the day, the white people have the money, whether you Democrats or Republicans, but you've got to work with the people that's going to work with you. And that doesn't necessarily mean we friends. You're trying to, your agenda. So with that being said, Puffy came up with saying that Black people needed their own party. And I think I discussed this a little bit with you, Mike, that that sounds ridiculous to a lot of people that have been in politics, because a lot of people have tried to have a third party, but they haven't seen it work. I've seen it work right here in Kansas City. In 1978, when I came here from New York with Freedom Inc. And so when he said that, bam, that hit me square in the face. If we had our own party and all Black people was member of that Black party, that's how freedom operated.
Let me interject, if I may. May I interject? We've had this for years. Like what Brother Mustafa was just talking about, he's a part of a movement, of a party, a political party that's been in existence since the 60s, right? And it's global in its reach. And we have to understand that we have a lot of blueprints already in place for us, for our liberation, that is exclusive of the oppressive system that we are a part of. When we make deals with the devil, we're like sheep going to wolves asking for them to spare us. And this is what Malcolm was talking about. Right?
But I understand that. But when I say a black party, this has nothing to do, I'm saying, even with Africa or any, if all blacks were in a party, undeniable, and that party used its political might. When I came here in 78, the majority community, no matter whether it was a political issue or a social issue, they would fight it out. But Freedom Inc. had a block of votes that was going to decide the issue. And in America, if we had a black party that was exclusively with black interests, it would turn the tables. Because
consider. Do the Chinese have a political party in the United States?
They don't have to. The Chinese weren't brought over here like we were. We have an exclusive situation.
Yes and no.
That we're living in an economic era where economics makes all the decisions. Economic makes the political decisions, and it makes all the decisions because the corporate America, who's controlling the global economics, that are controlling our our politicians, who basically are making the laws and that are protecting the corporate community. If they could not take control of our politics, we would be in better control. And as I said, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans or whatever the issue, by the time they get finished fighting it out, and we had our own separate party, we would determine who was going to win that argument.
May I say?
Please.
I think Brother Cobb just said it a minute ago. We need to study political science and get some type of political education to even conceive, because conception is the power here. If we can conceive that through political ideas, through a political education, that's going to take a massive effort, because right now the political education that we receive comes in only two packages, Democrat or Republican, and then we're not even educated on how they work. How do their committees work? How do they fight it out? In how do they come up with bills and these types of things that they push? We have not, as a people, I would go as far as saying being allowed to. You talk about the 60s and all of these things. We had examples and all of that, but that political education is missing now.
Yeah, I'm not debating. Let me say this. And all my programs also, when I have the doctorate people and all of them coming on, they be using these high terms and words. What I'm saying, down to the basics, that if you have a black party that's only dealing with black interests from an economic standpoint, a political standpoint, we could potentially be the most powerful out here. Because
go ahead, I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm saying just having some fundamental basic things that I'm black, you black, if we in the same party, and it's just our party, nobody else is in that party, that's a good thing. And we can move. I'm saying I don't even have to know whether you're Republican, Democrat, social. If every black person in the United States was in that black party, that's serious power. Somebody had to die behind that.
But like you said, bringing it down to just bare basic, that takes an education. That takes a whole way of thinking. Just, we can go to LA, and just because we black with a red hat on, we got problems. We got to get past that.
Well, we know that. I'm not, hold it. I am not talking about the mechanics.
Okay.
I'm talking about the concept.
Okay.
All right. The mechanics, as Mike said, a lot of that's already figured out.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, the organization that you belong to, organizations that he belonged to, that's been figured out. It's like when I'm having these discussions, I go to the basics. I tell white people all the time, if we're economically sufficient, we can figure out all our own problems. We don't need nobody, no help.
And on that note, I saw a cartoon today, a cartoon, a drawing. It was a worm inside of a chicken talking about, I'm going to change the system. The worm is inside the chicken who got ate, talking about, I'm going to change the system. That's an impossibility. And the more we try to align with the system that is designed for our destruction, we're never going to change the system, ever. It's not designed that way. And so what we have to start thinking is in a self-determined way, like Brother Kimathi was talking about earlier. And what I'm saying is we have these constructs, these concepts right before us, but we are so bent on assimilation. We are so bent on integration. We are so bent on wanting to be accepted by a system that rejects us categorically. And the more and more we try to fit into this square and we're circles, we're going to only frustrate ourselves. Dr. King said it best. We've integrated into a burning house and we're trying to put the fire out. Malcolm said, where the wind at? This is where we have to actually be. And the best way to do it is that.
Now you mentioned Malcolm. Malcolm also said that he worked with anybody, any color, religion, or anyone
to smash injustice.
Right.
Smash injustice.
And to upset the system.
Undeniably. And that's what we have to see. But I'm going to allude back to 2012. The African Union, all 55 heads of state, passed a protocol and a declaration that has given the diaspora, the entire African diaspora, the support and even the alignments that need to be made to form our own governmental structure. And it's happening. It's happening. If you look on my wall here, you can see I have an African Union flag, right? Because that is the new banner that I would suppose, and submit that we as African people need to start looking back to that particular continent for our empowerment. We don't have to deal with Trump and Biden anymore. If we choose not to, we can deal with our own continental leaders. Now, not to say it's not without flaw and controversy. We know right now Nigeria's going through a lot, Guinea's going through a lot, but we still have other countries where we can find support for us as African people. And to access this power relationship that we can, use for our advantage.
Well, see, my thing is what I was saying, being having that block of votes, that changes the narrative even with Africa, because when you have that block of votes, you have the political power to not just black. Now you have, when you can change the narrative and the direction, now you have the United States government behind you, and you have the United States government now not focusing on Europe, but focusing on Africa, because Africa is what you're focused on, and you're the one that is the gorilla in the room, because your block of votes is going to determine anything that happens in this country. At the end of the day, by the time those two parties slug it out, we have enough votes that will make the difference on who wins. And that means that's a whole different scenario on how both of them look at you as a people. And so when we start talking Black Party, people take that into 100 different directions. I'm saying keep it simple. I was going
to say as an extension to civil rights is what we're talking about. We're talking about under this Constitution, under this set of laws as citizens, taxpayers, and all these things, and all the rights that come up under that. And I think like you said, we dip over into the human rights where we've expanded it to an international kind of thing. So there's two things we're looking at. That's that schizophrenia that Africans in America have. We have what we feel like we deserve because we worked and died here as citizens under this Constitution. We want them to say, hey, we don't need your police brutality because under the Constitution, we got Second Amendment rights. We can protect ourselves if we're allowed to exercise that. So in a party, again, keeping it simple, keeping it real simple, we have to get educated on what our rights are. That solidifies that notion of party togetherness, organization, whatever it's going to be. That entity.
Hey, Cobbs, you haven't had your day in court. Run it down.
Man, it's this dialogue so far is powerful, and there's two terms that keep coming to mind as I'm hearing you brothers speak, and I'm thinking political education and political consciousness. Without the political education, the economic sufficiency will not be effective. The party won't be effective. So that political education is important. We have to be able to conceive of what political power is. What concept do we have of power? One can hardly deny the reality of power and its tangible effects. You have various definitions for the term power, depending on context and circumstances. And this is because power is shaped by its environment. But a working definition for the term power, I think, is vital for political consciousness and understanding political power. Consider an excerpt from Dr. Amos Wilson in Blueprint for Black Power. He states, power comes with being, with interactive existence, with being alive. It is the essence of life and the motive force of growth and development and of the adaptability of living things to environmental changes and demand. Power refers to the availability to do, the ability to be, the ability to prevail. Beingness and aliveness originate with power. To be powerless is to be willless, impotent, and lifeless, without effect or influence. To be
hey, Carl,
nothing.
You laying it on us, but you're
so I find it interesting. Yes.
Your picture has frozen.
Can you hear me?
You're back.
Oh, okay.
I'm back. I got a bunch of intellectuals with me, and when we talk about power, what popped in my mind? The Matrix. He went the Frenchman. He said, you have no power. And I was like, that's the situation that they see us in. But I think I see ourselves as we Neo, and we can adapt and have adapted, and we can overcome. We are going to overcome. And now bringing this conversation full circle to Miss Brooks, and what she has upset the barrel and the apple cart. How do you feel we look at ourselves and our own political leadership? Because from my perspective, we point the finger a lot, but I think that we have a lot to be accounted for ourselves. Mike?
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.
That we're in. As political as we want to be, as they were saying, the brothers were saying, political education is so vital. We are so naive politically. We want to delegate power and responsibility to representatives when in fact we are the government. We have the responsibility as individuals and as a group to administer the government. And this is, I'm gonna take it to this particular level. We many of us are Bible loving God-fearing believers. But we don't look at that book in a proper sense. That book, first and foremost, is a political manifesto. And it talks about an entire kingdom that is to be made manifest on earth, which is found where? But inside of us. And so if we are the proponents and the representatives, right, and the emissaries and envoys and the ministers of this kingdom, whose kingdom and whose business are we about then if we're voting for a system that is vehemently opposed to it? What are we doing? Whose allegiance are we seeking? Or are we giving? Whose allegiance? Who has our allegiance? What kingdom has our allegiance? Right? Are we for Caesar, or are we for, you know, the being that we call
I'm
God?
for black people.
But that's
in general.
still,
and as I said, I keep it real simple on this level. That
I get it.
If you black, we need to work together, because I always say I use a boat. Some people use a bus. You got people at the head of the boat, people in the middle of the boat, and people at the end of the boat. And our black community, I signify that as you have economic and social and educational barrier with our lowest set of individuals in our community. Then you have that middle class that's just barely hanging on to get in the middle class. And then you have a solid middle class of professionals that are really, this is in my estimation, are disjointed from the community, because the values that they have learned at those positions that where they work at and so forth are economic values. And let me just take care of myself, and not looking back at the back of the boat or the back of the bus, what they're doing. And we're in self-check as it relates to speaking up for ourselves, because if you're in those positions, you're in these communities, if you say the wrong thing at your job, you lose your job, and then you might not be able to support your family. And so you're coming up in the educational system that's teaching you how to behave and how not to protect your rights as a person of color. So with that being said, I think when you hear a young lady like Miss Brooks go off, what they want to basically portray, go off the deep end or whatever. No, we've been dealing with this all our lives as Black people, and most of us are in self-check, and they're not going to tell you that.
Well,
she's not in self-check, and she's telling you what most Black people, I would say 85 to 90% of Black people would say about you. What do y'all have to say about that?
Well, may I say, the sister definitely had her Fannie Lou Hamer moment, you know, sick and tired of being sick and tired type thing. And definitely we can come together and agree. But you mentioned you mentioned groups of people or classes of people. This is what we've been chewing on pretty much the last 50, 60 years, you know, where you have some affirmative action, you have a few that squeeze in and can sit at these tables and make these deals for a certain class of people. And then they present themselves as Black interested people, but
representing
then
us as Black people.
Right, exactly. But then here we go. We're voting in people like Michael was talking about. Just because they're Black is not good enough. It goes back to the point of politically educating yourself. What's your relationship? Politics is relationships, right? So what is your relationship to my group on this block? Tell me what you can do for me and how we can work together. Okay, handshake. We can work together like this. But then you get downtown and somebody whispers in your ear, we can give you more than they can. then we get left out to the back of the boat, bus, cart, under the boat, all of that. So our relationships with these folks that have squeezed themselves in the door with our, can I say, with our vote, with our, just because they're Black, we have to move past that.
Our faith.
And then it's something similar to what the ANC, I'm taking it to Africa now, what the ANC had to do. You know, you had some in there that wanted to integrate, then you had some that wanted to tear apart, and they had to come to grips with that. And we're going to have to come to grips with that in these United States, Republican, Democrat, whatever you call yourself. What are your relationships to our collective interests?
Well, I think those are things that I said earlier that I think that we can't deal with a lot of that until we deal with some of this stuff in-house, because I don't feel that Black people talk to each other in a very forthright and honest way. And so therefore, how can you point the finger at these white people and say, oh, you this and you that? Most of the time, the things that they're doing, we have the power to prevent them from doing.
Our relationships with one another have been damaged, and that's where the repair. I mean, we can go into the atonement things and those kind of conversations, but we don't have the relationships with the politic in our neighborhoods anymore.
Because of who we've elected. See, you know what? The boycott. Blacks haven't done no boycotts or nothing in so long. I don't even know whether some of these young people know what that's about. And we in America, and this is like 12 years ago, McDonald's having all of that fat in their fryers, the oils that they were using. The mom said, hey, around the country, we ain't going with that. Boycott McDonald's fries. They hurry up and change that. And so this is the beauty of a Black party. The heck with all the politics. The Black party. Now, Costco's, you over here, Gaines, you over here, y'all all in our neighborhood. You're supplying milk to our schools. What financial and economic benefit are you bringing to the community besides coming your plants in our community, you driving back home where you're at, and you're not giving a percent of your income out our community? And that is not being demanded because most of our leadership, not all, they like them cushy jobs making those salaries. And that's not compatible with unchaining your brothers that's on that lower economic, educational landscape. And we can't be whole as Black people when that is happening to our cousins, our uncles, and our aunts, because we just barely got into a position to pay rent, have a house, and what have you. And we got a lot of family members that are back there. Cobbs?
Critical thinking. We have to learn how to think, because our issues are so complex, as we've all alluded to. There's no one size fits all type of solution. And so what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to learn how to think. And that's something that's been stifled in our public education system. That's by design.
How do you feel we come together as Black people, and especially as Black men? I want all three of y'all to answer that. But go ahead, Cobbs.
I think we have to create platforms where we can simply talk.
No, more. I said, how do you think
we
come together as of right now? I know what we got to create.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking we come together by creating opportunities where we can gather. It can be something as practical as what is that website? Or not website, but it's a platform, meetups.com.
What I'm saying right now, how do you feel black men talk to one another? Not black men that are woke or black men that are asleep, black men in general. How do you see us? Do you think that we're, as black men in general, woke enough to get rid of the egos and all other things? How do you see that? I'm gonna ask each one of y'all, how do you see that? Until we start really addressing those issues, we can't go outside talking to nobody else.
I'm gonna go ahead. We need to recognize the urgency of the hour. We are in an urgent hour where we are again under attack. You know, we have to look at the common lines that connect us. We have to look at the assaults that our people are facing, men, women, and children. You know, we have to deal with a very basic rule of existence, and that's survival. You know, the law of self-preservation is primary as relates to what we have to respond to, but we're too busy reacting. You know, we thinking, and I'm not knocking protesting. Protesting has its place, but what is the outcome? What results from that? If we're just marching and making these proclamations really that are asphyxiating us, we're going around talking about I can't breathe, well, what do you expect to result? Right. No justice, no peace. You're affirming these realities. So we have to really seek ways to change the way we think. We have to change our paradigm. I'm asking you,
the question on the table is, how do you
It's all connected.
No, How do you have conversations with others? Over the last decade, have you been able to connect with black men as it relates to what their responsibility is and what you see them doing? Not just in your clique. I'm talking about in general, because I know when I start talking blackness, the other it's like it's a turnoff sometimes to different ones.
Man, is my turn coming around? I see it like
everybody mute besides him.
Well, what I'm hearing the question is, you know, talking to each other is very difficult. I got problems, you got problems, we mean mugging, we're afraid of each other because I don't know if you got a gun or you're gonna take something from me. But that's what we gotta get past. We have to be able, not just talking about blackness or your economics or your politics, how you feel, how you doing?
That's what I'm talking about.
We got to humanize one another. We've animalized one another so much whether you're woke or not woke, we're not looking at each other as human beings.
Or looking at each other in the eye.
We don't look right because we're so in fear of one another and in fear to be together, not just because we're black, because we're men. We've been told that you ain't supposed to do this and this and that. But I talk to the average man sitting at a bus stop or walking down the street. You got children, I got children. We can relate. You know, not just because we black, but because we got children. You hungry, I'm hungry. We can relate. We have to find those points where we can open the door to have a conversation and then find out how deep we can go in that conversation. Because everybody ain't ready for, let's go march or let's go do something else.
Though, how deep we can, once we have the conversation, how deep can we go with that individual or that group?
Because I tell you this, I have a nephew, just personal, got out of prison last year. I couldn't help him. He's in a whole nother state. What can I do to help him? Instead of ignoring him, talk to him, encourage him, you know, send him money if I can, whatever. Just being in touch with him, telling him there is hope on the other side, even when he don't see it. Those kind of personal experiences. I didn't get in on him where you made a mistake, you out here, you got to do the system, this and this. No, what are you doing today to make yourself a better man?
Which group are you? Do you have a group that you're associated with?
As far as group of men?
Yeah, I'm saying just in general, concerned with the diaspora's problems in here.
I work with a couple of groups.
All right.
Yeah.
What I want to say to you, and I'm saying to Mike, I wish you would your group would pen a email supporting Miss Brooks. I'm going to talk to Mike about getting some type of proclamation or some type of something where we can get our male groups to say that we're standing behind.
Oh yes, sir. Yes,
because,
that's doable.
See, having programs like this and all of that is one thing, but we have got to start dealing with these things in a systematic way and try to change some of the systemic things that have brought about this. And how you do that is bring this our groups together and say, I like what she's doing, or I like what this company's doing, and we're going to support this. And so, Mike, did you hear what I was saying about your organization?
Can you repeat it, please?
All right. What I said, the people on this panel, if you belong to any type of Black organization, what I'd like for you to do to contact them over the next 24 hours and have them send Cascade Media Group a statement supporting Keiajah Brooks, that we want to bring all our as many organizations as we're familiar with to write a statement supporting her. And that is because we need to be able to show our young men and women, when you are out there out front and you are the tip of the spear, we're behind you.
Right.
And anyone that's not behind that, they need to be
you know
known.
who you are. Yeah,
we need to know that you're taking your professional career and the perks you got over what we want to see and what we're seeing happen in our community. And so you don't deserve to be in a position, not your specific position as a professional, but you don't need to be representing Black people.
So let me ask you this. Do you want this via email? You want this on the social media page?
Via email. And if we can, in the next 24 hours, I would like to have another Zoom. And if we can get something going on social media tonight, asking anyone Black, this is just for Black males right now. Any Black male that support that video, be ready to get on a Zoom tomorrow at a certain time. See, that's action. And then from that, we can see if it's 1 million people, who's who, and then we can start working with them to create some solutions that they're not afraid. They've already said they're not afraid by signing on to this. So what I'm going to say, Cobbs, what's your closing statements? What you want the people to know in closing?
It's absolutely imperative that we it's absolutely imperative that we acquire critical thinking, a good political
Your
education,
sound is bad, son.
and political consciousness so that we be effective for grassroots organizations. I couldn't be heard. It's saying my internet connection is unstable.
Right, you po.
Okay.
You don't have Google.
1, 2. 1, 2. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah, better now.
Okay. All right. So what I was saying was, it's imperative to know the how critical it is, how critical of a juncture it is for us, and we need to acquire critical thinking, political education, and political consciousness to organize at the grassroots level. That's my closing statement.
Mike?
There's a reality of alternatives that exist to the two-party system that we have access to. The more and more we lean to that system, though, the more we are going to disempower ourselves. We have to understand self-empowerment. We have to understand, collective interest. And it's going to take work, but we have models that are well in place. We don't have to create any wheels. And now we have the full support of 55 heads of state with the African Union to go about creating a viable reality for ourselves now. You see what I'm saying? And this is a prime time for this reality for us to start organizing around. So we're going to have to become an organism. The key is for us to gain political education, political consciousness has been mentioned, to exercise critical thought, and then understand that we have to be each other's key. We are our brother's keeper. If we don't understand that, we're never going to understand anything. We are our brother's keeper, right? My whole premise is, one, we have to have love for ourselves, true love for ourselves. We have to have love for each other. And whatever your paradigm may be, we have to love our creator, the Most High. And that is going to allow this field to become more horizontal and lateral, where, there will be more equality and equity available to us. So we just got to get back. We got to return to fetch it. We got to undergo Sankofa. We got to do, in Hebrew, we call Teshuvah. We have to go back and recover that which has been taken from us in order to move forward. That's my closing statement.
Mustafa?
I'm just going to quote what Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, always told us, was to join the organization working for your people. Whatever it is, whatever you're comfortable with, get into that organization, roll up your sleeves and get busy. Because, and quoting Marcus Garvey, organize or die. That's our only choices right now.
All right. As we always close here at Cascade Media Group with all our programs, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This program is brought to you by Black Star.